Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a name that everyone knows, the IRS. But forget about tax forms and deadlines for a minute. We're going to go way back to uncover the surprising, dramatic, and honestly, kind of chaotic origin story of this incredibly powerful institution.
Okay, let's just jump right in. When you think of the IRS, it feels like it's been around forever, right? Like it was part of the original blueprint for America. But was it? Was this all part of the grand plan from day one? The answer is a huge, emphatic no.
And this is the key to understanding the whole story. The IRS wasn't designed in a quiet room by brilliant strategists. It was forged in the fire of national emergencies. It was a reaction, a solution cobbled together in moments of crisis that just kept growing.
So, to find its roots, we have to go all the way back to the single greatest crisis in American history. A crisis that created a problem that only a whole lot of money could solve.
I mean, just try to wrap your head around the sheer scale of the Civil War. The Union was fighting for its very survival, and wars are unbelievably expensive. The government's usual piggy bank, tariffs and taxes on goods, wasn't even coming close to covering the costs. So President Lincoln had this monumental problem on his hands. How on earth do you pay for a war to save the nation? While his solution was revolutionary for its time, he and Congress did something brand new. They created an office called the Commissioner of Internal Revenue. And they gave it a radical new power, the ability to directly tax citizens' incomes. This was it, the earliest ancestor of the IRS, born out of pure wartime necessity. But here's the really interesting thing you can see on this timeline. It was never meant to last. The tax was created in '62 to pay for the war. By '72, just a decade later, poof, it was completely gone. Everyone saw it as an emergency measure. Once the crisis was over, the tax was over too. So for a while, it really seemed like the income tax was just going to be a weird footnote in the history books. But America was changing, and fast. And a whole new set of problems was brewing that would bring the idea roaring back to life. After the war, you get the Gilded Age. Think railroads, steel, and massive, massive fortunes being built almost overnight. But all that industrial growth created this huge gap between the super rich and pretty much everyone else. A lot of people started looking around and saying, hey, wait a second. The government is mostly funded by tariffs, which makes regular people pay more, while these new industrialists are barely paying anything. The system just felt unfair. So Congress tried again. As you can see here, in 1894, they passed a new income tax, even though there wasn't a war on. But that victory lasted for like 5 minutes. The very next year, the Supreme Court shut it down hard. In a huge case, they ruled the tax was unconstitutional. They said it was a direct tax that had to be divided up among the states by population, which made it basically impossible to actually do. It was a complete dead end. So what do you do when the highest court in the land kills your big idea? You can't get around them, so you have to go over them. You have to change the rulebook itself, the United States Constitution. And this was the solution, the 16th Amendment. It's incredibly short, but its impact is massive. It just flat out gives Congress the power to lay and collect taxes on incomes no matter where that income comes from, and totally sidesteps the Supreme Court's old ruling. The roadblock wasn't just removed, it was obliterated. But wow, getting this passed was an epic political brawl. You had one side arguing it was all about fairness, making the new millionaires pay their share and giving the government a steady income. But the other side saw it as this terrifying government overreach, an invasion of privacy, and yes, some even called it socialism. This was a really, really divisive fight. And this quote really gets to the core of the pro-tax argument. For them, it wasn't just about money. It was about civic duty. It was this idea that if you benefit from the government's protection, you have a responsibility to chip in. It was framed as a fundamental part of being a good citizen. Okay, so the amendment passes in 1913. The Constitutional War is won. The income tax is finally law. But the tiny little agency in charge of it, the Bureau of Internal Revenue, was about to be hit with a challenge that nobody could have possibly seen coming. Almost as soon as the income tax became permanent, the world exploded into conflict. First World War I, then the Great Depression, then World War II. These events demanded government spending on a scale that was just unimaginable before. Any income tax? It became the engine that would fund it all, and in the process, helped turn the U.S. into a global superpower. To see just how dramatic the shift was, you just have to look at the numbers. In 1913, that very first year, fewer than 400,000 tax returns were filed.
It was a tax almost exclusively for the super rich. The agency itself was small and pretty manageable.
Now, let's jump to the end of World War II in 1945. That number didn't just grow, it exploded to almost 50 million. The income tax went from being a class tax to a mass tax. Pretty much every working American was now paying it to fund the war. That small little bureau had to transform into a huge nationwide machine just to handle the paperwork.
And all that crazy growth forced the final step. The old Bureau of Internal Revenue, which sounds like something out of a Dickens novel, was totally reorganized in 1952. They modernized it, streamlined it for its huge new role, and they gave it the name we all know today, the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS.
So after that whirlwind tour through war, politics, and a constitution, what's the big idea? What's the main thing to remember from all of this? It's really this journey from crisis to institution. It started as a temporary fix to save the country. It was made permanent only after a massive political battle. And it was forged into the powerhouse it is today by the demands of global conflict. An idea that started as a radical, temporary solution became an absolute fixture of modern American life. And that whole history leaves us with a really fascinating question. The IRS was built piece by piece to solve the problems of the past. So as we face the new, totally different challenges of our time, you have to wonder, how will our relationship with taxes and the agency that collects them change all over again? Something to think about. Thanks for watching.